Good morning. My name is Sally Garcia, and this is a presentation of my fiscal policy report. The subject of my report is the City of Grand Terrace, California. A brief introduction of Grand Terrace. It was incorporated in 1978 because it did not want to be annexed into the neighboring city of Colton. It is a contract city located in San Bernardino County, just south of it, right along the 215 corridor, sandwiched between the cities of Colton and Riverside. It has a population of 12,337, and it covers an area of 3.5 square miles. The area's per capita income is $30,593. In order to determine which fiscal issues to discuss in this paper, I analyzed several of the city's documents as well as other relevant documents. I did a brief comparison of its 2011 annual financial report and 2014 annual financial report. I chose these two specific fiscal years because I wanted to see Grand Terrace's financial situation before and after the dissolution of redevelopment agencies. I also looked at their recent adopted budget, their 5-year financial analysis and budget stabilization plan, as well as the draft relocation impact statement of the Interstate I-215 Barton Road interchange project from Sandbag. Most of Grand Terrace's fiscal issues stem from the RDA dissolution because much of their budgeting were based on RDA funding the city thought was never going away. The dissolution resulted in fiscal insolvency, and in its fiscal year 2014 and 15 annual budget, it projected deficit spending for the next 4 years. The city was terribly over-reliant on redevelopment or RDA funds, that the city's leaders thought disincorporation within a year of AB 26 was going to happen. However, the city administrators can't always use it as a scapegoat. Poor planning and an overly optimistic instead of a conservative budgeting also contributed to their current situation. These fiscal challenges made the city of Grand Terrace declare fiscal emergency, and just like other cities across California, it had to make concessions. The prevailing fiscal issues include the elimination of RDA funds that it was once dependent on, decreased tax revenue from business relocations and or closures due to the I-215 Barton Road interchange project, and the negative fiscal impact of the recent rise in crime. Since its incorporation in 1978, the city had relied heavily on RDA funds for infrastructure, community development, and operational expenses, and had considered disincorporation because city leaders did not believe the city would be sustainable on its own. The entire city was one agency's redevelopment area. Because of the small population and consequently low property and sales tax revenues, administrators engineered day-to-day operations to qualify for redevelopment funds for decades, with more than half of the money going towards personnel. Prior to AB 26, the city was operating with positive fund balances and surpluses. For example, the city's 2011 financial report showed that government-wide net assets ended with $29,590,203, an increase of just over $19 million from the previous year. Of that amount, $18.3 million was attributable to the RDA, which gave a net increase of $953,000 to the general fund. In contrast, the 2014 annual report showed Grand Terrace ended with $23,596,000. Though this is not a huge difference from the 2011's amount, Grand Terrace had an extraordinary gain of $438,000 due to asset transfers from the successor agency. Additionally, the city was faced with over $20 million of current interest bonds after the dissolution. The dissolution did allow cities to become more autonomous and accountable for expenditures, yet they still could not do anything about the incurred debt. One proposal for Grand Terrace to survive post-RDA, and for any city for that matter, is to have AB 26 revised. Under AB 26, cities were prohibited to sell its RDA-related bonds and restructure or refinance the indebtedness left from the RDA. Cities should not be left with this indebtedness when the RDA had incurred these debts. Therefore, cities should be able to own their debt and allow them to use different financing options to moderate that debt to ensure they remain solvent without the RDA funds. The ethical repercussions of shutting down RDAs did more damage than while they were in existence, because it hindered improvement for the environment, job growth for families who were able to live and work in the same city, and the action stopped affordable housing projects. Especially in Grand Terrace's situation, all the revenues that resulted from RDA-related projects were taken away from its residents. Grand Terrace was left in a dire situation while the state legally took all of its revenues. Its financial situation now includes the inability to meet its residents' needs. Instead of putting a quick ending to funding, the state should have completed the dissolution in phases, essentially to wean off the cities from its dependency on RDA funds so they do not risk going into insolvency. The San Bernardino Associated Governments is working in partnership with Caltrans and the City of Grand Terrace to improve the Interstate 215 and Barton Road interchange. The purpose of the I-215 Barton Road project is to improve operations, increase capacity, and reduce current and future congestion at that interchange, and to improve access to the businesses and other facilities to the city, as it is the primary regional access for Grand Terrace. This project will greatly relieve congestion as traffic will increase in the future, and it will potentially bring more businesses and life to a city that has had slow growth. They will use eminent domain, which will displace a mix of residential and non-residential properties by the end of this year. Sales tax revenue and business license revenues projections have been revised downward in fiscal years 2014 and 15 through fiscal year 2016 and 17 because of the relocations and/or closures. The city can work to build a stronger business recognition for the area because of the new interchange, but that would mean potentially driving businesses away from the many mom-and-pop stores already in the city. With eminent domain, residents and business owners do not have many options. However, they can ensure that they receive just compensation for their properties and that they are relocated to similar or better properties in Grand Terrace. This way, their income and spending stay within the city. While fair market value of the properties is a proper element of compensation, standing alone ignores a variety of incidental economic losses influenced by forced displacement, and thus falls short of being genuinely just compensation. The city of Grand Terrace touts as the safest place to live and work in the region. Its crime index of 1,116.93 is much lower than that of California and the U.S. Although violent crimes are extremely rare in the city, there has been a recent rise of property crimes, and with a crime rate of 300.8 in 2012, it is higher than the California and United States averages of 266.5. There are only 3 full-time sheriff patrol units and 1 citizen patrol officer. Due to recent budget cuts, the city made concessions to its law enforcement services agreement with the County of San Bernardino and with the San Bernardino County Sheriff Department, including removing a full-time traffic deputy and detective and a sheriff's service specialist and eliminating the crossing guard program. These reductions are attracting criminals, and by the end of this year, Grand Terrace will see the most number of crimes that it has seen in the past decade. Homeowners and auto insurance rates will of course increase and is very unattractive to new businesses and potentially new residents. It is inevitable the city will have to reduce law enforcement officers again. However, this should present an opportunity for all of the residents and public administrators to meet and find solutions to the rise in crime. Some IT solutions may include installing cameras at intersections and cameras in neighborhoods where crime is most prevalent. More lighting would be another crime deterrent, as well as having more volunteers for citizen patrol. The city should offer free self-defense classes and discounts for personal home cameras and lights and alarms. By cooperating with the residents and instilling a sense of unity, residents would be more proactive in their neighborhoods to deter crime. The city has an obligation to protect the citizens, and by removing an important feature of protective services, it should provide cost-effective ways to feel safe again. In addition to the discussed fiscal issues, the City of Grand Terrace must also handle the increased CalPERS retirement contribution rate, health insurance rates increasing by 6% annually due to the Affordable Health Care Act, and an annual escalation of 4% in its law enforcement contract with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. These and additional minor issues contribute to the city's insolvency. The RDA also decreased the city's liquidity ratios. It was 5% in 2011, but after the dissolution, it sank down to 2%, showing Grand Terrace is struggling to meet its short-term obligations. The city is heavily dependent on property and sales tax revenues, but they minimally support the skeleton of Grand Terrace, as expenses outside of its control will indefinitely increase. Lastly, it is a small city with too huge of aspirations to become a larger city and attract large populations and businesses. Grand Terrace needs to realize it can be solvent and self-sufficient just by staying as a small, tight-knit community, or else it will drive away the residents and businesses and subsequently seek disincorporation.